Boxing Truth here. A couple of days ago, I did a video about Andre Berto, trying to find out who his next opponent will be since he went into a different direction by turning down a Lamont Peterson fight. And in the back of my mind, I had Victor Ortiz. I thought a rematch was possible, but I didn't mention it in the video because I don't know what Victor Ortiz's plans were at the time. It just seems like he's more interested in his acting career than pursuing to get back on the top in boxing. He's been very inactive for the past 5 years. He's only fought a total of 5 times ever since he won a world title against Andre Berto back in April of 2011. So he's pretty much a part-time, semi-retired fighter who's had bad losses. I would say he's quit a total of 4 times in his career, including the fight against Floyd Mayweather and Luis Collazo. He was officially counted out in those fights, but in my opinion, just by watching the fights at the time, Victor Ortiz he quit in those fights. In the Mayweather fight, he got sucker punched, yes, but he could have gotten up, and he didn't even try. That you could just tell he didn't even try. He just has that mentality. He's weak mentally, and when the going gets tough, he packs in. He's shown him many times in his career that he just can't deal with adversity, so he just opts for the easy way out by quitting. Luis Collazo, the same thing. He got hit with a punch, got knocked down. He was clearly. He was hurt, but he was aware of his senses. He was aware of where he was. I mean, he didn't get up in that fight either. He quit. So that's been the disappointing thing about Victor Ortiz's career. He had a lot of potential, great potential, earlier on when he was coming up. But now he's still soldiering on. Fans have been wondering if he's even gonna return this year. Is he going to continue to stay inactive, fight once a year, part-time fighter? But he stated to Fight Hype that he's got a date, April 30th, and it appears it's going to be a rematch with Andre Berto. Nothing official, but it makes sense. It's a fight that makes sense for both guys. It's the perfect fight for both of them. Both have had similar type of careers. Both have been world champions at welterweight, paper champions. Both have fought Floyd Mayweather on the pay-per-view platform. Both had disappointing performances. But against each other, they produced the 2011 Fight of the Year. These guys are perfect for each other. They're both very flawed. Both have been exposed. Both are lacking in a lot of things. Berto lacks defense. Ortiz lacks heart. But against each other, they produced a great fight. And in that fight, it was the only fight that Victor Ortiz responded like a fighter when he was going through adversity. It was a tremendous fight from the jump. Ortiz came out guns blazing, was very determined to win this fight. He was considered a significant underdog at the time because he was moving up in weight. It was his first fight at that weight. But, a lot of people didn't know how good Andre Berto was. He was undefeated, but he fought a lot of hand-picked guys, safe fights. We just didn't know how good he was. And when he was tested by Collazo, he didn't pass the test. Most people will say he lost the fight, but got the decision. But in this fight, Berto was the favorite, and Ortiz showed immediately in round 1 that Berto was in for a long night. Ended up being a good fight. The first 6 rounds were back and forth. Both guys took turns in landing big shots. Both guys traded knockdowns, and the 6th round was the turning point. It was when Berto was coming on, was having some great moments, landed a big overhand right, knocked Victor Ortiz down. Looked like a matter of time that the stoppage would happen, but Victor Ortiz flipped the script. Instead of quitting and staying down, he got up, bit on his mouthpiece, and fought the best he ever fought in his career. He turned it around, knocked Berto down in the same round, and he dominated the fight from thereafter, and he clearly beat Andre Berto and became the WBC welterweight champion for a very short reign that lasted about 5 months, as he was sucker punched by Floyd Mayweather, and it appeared to me that he quit, didn't even try to get up. Ever since, he's been a part-time fighter. His last two opponents were very weak opposition. I saw his last fight in December at the AT&T Center in Texas. He just didn't look good. He hadn't fought in a while, so it's understandable. It was at a catch weight at 150 pounds. He was recovering from a hand injury that was really a significant injury. It took him a long time to heal the injury. He came back against Gilberto Leon, who had lost about 4 of his past 6 fights. But he just didn't look like his normal self. He looked like a fighter who wasn't in the best of shape and wasn't as sharp. It just seemed like a fighter that was coming off a long layoff. So if this fight goes down with Berto in the rematch, it makes perfect sense for both guys. Both guys are very beatable. This rematch has been in the works for a long time. They were supposed to fight back in 2012 in a rematch, but Berto first had a biceps injury that canceled the February date, and then they rescheduled it for June of 2012. Then Berto got caught for enhancers as they were doing VADA testing, and Golden Boy never used VADA testing. Well, when it was run by Richard Schaefer at the time, who was the CEO, Richard Schaefer said, "I'm done with VADA." After that fight was canceled, it was a big rematch. And 4 years later, the rematch is in the works again. People are talking about it. And it's a fight that fans are still interested in seeing, because both are still named fighters. Both guys have been in good fights. And to me, Victor Ortiz had more potential of the two fighters, definitely. Even though he's mentally weak and he's quitting a lot of his fights, when he was coming up, he really had the potential to beat. He had the potential to beat anybody. I mean, this is when before he got knocked out by Maidana. He showed a lot of promise. I mean, he was coming up in the rankings and he was knocking out gatekeepers, and he was destroying solid fighters like Mark Arnautis, Jeffrey Resto, and he knocked out a gatekeeper in Carlos Maza and stopped Emmanuel Clottey. So he was looking good in these fights. And then he showed great potential in the Maidana fight. I mean, he went in there. Maidana was relatively unknown at the time. But the one thing that Maidana's proven is that he can punch. He's a good puncher at the world-class level, especially at 140 pounds. And Victor Ortiz, he showed what he could do. He went in there and almost stopped Maidana in 2 rounds. Knocked him down 3 times in 2 rounds. Looked like he was going to get him out of there early. Ortiz, they used to call him, well, he was called Vicious Victor Ortiz. But at that time, he truly was vicious. He was very confident. He was punching with a lot of power. He was very strong. Solid amateur background. I mean, HBO was pushing him to be the next star, the next Oscar, because he was promoted by Golden Boy at the time. And he had the look, he had the fighting style, he had the story. You know, he was abandoned by his parents earlier in his childhood. Grew up in the foster care, was adopted by Robert Garcia, then competed as an amateur in his early teens, had some success, and then he had a successful pro career going into the Maidana fight, that was the big fight at the Staples Center. So it was supposed to be a showcase for Victor Ortiz. He was performing. He was delivering under the bright lights the first 2 rounds, but then Maidana showed his heart and his ability to withstand punishment. And Victor Ortiz got exposed that night. He showed that he just doesn't have the mentality of a fighter. And it was bad enough that he quit, that he said no mas. But the interview following that fight with Max Kellerman, it left a sour taste in a lot of boxing fans. It showed that, I don't know, Victor Ortiz just doesn't seem like he's made for this. But he's been able to get by with his talent and his physicality, because mentally it's something is lacking there. But he's been able to win fights despite this tremendous flaw that he has as a fighter, and it's a flaw that could really hold back the potential that Victor can really present in the ring. But mentally, he was ruined after that Maidana fight. Before the Maidana fight, he was vicious. Ever since that fight, besides the fight with Berto, he has been vicious. He changed his style. He started boxing more after the Maidana fight. Took fights with guys that weren't the biggest punchers, like Nate Campbell, and shot Vivian Harris. And he had a solid performance against Lamont Peterson. He knocked him down twice, showed his power. But this was before Peterson became a champion, and he was still developing at the time. But it ended up being a draw. Then he had the fight with Berto. That was his best performance. He won the world title, but it was very short-lived. And he hasn't done much of anything ever since. But, Victor Ortiz, he's still a name. He still has a fan base. And the fight with Berto is the perfect fight for both guys. Both fans, there are fans that are interested in watching the rematch. It's long overdue. Both guys have unfinished business against each other. If it goes down, I have no idea who wins this fight. They're saying April 30th. Well, Victor Ortiz has a date on April 30th. It looks like it will be Andre Berto. But, damn, who the hell is going to win this fight? It's just a fight where, you sit back, have some popcorn, because it'll be an action fight for however long it lasts. Both guys are not at their best, but both guys are hittable. They're not defensive wizards. Could produce a knockout, but y'all let me know who you got in a Victor Ortiz Andre Berto rematch 50-50 fight. This is Boxing Truth. I'm out.